Another Wednesday here in downtown Los Angeles.
I'm John Castelli.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, that's me.
I'm Kanye Castelli.
Oh my God. Dropping bombs. So off mic, we were just chatting about the best frequencies in the world to cut. And I know that's what you all want us to talk about and want to hear from us, but we're not going to tell you what they are.
Yeah, that's how we make our bucks. Cutting those frequencies when we mix and master your records.
1.25K.
I hate those frequencies.
It sounds so much better, but I don't know what they do.
1.25K has no business on any records.
I want to do an episode on conversations like Matt Rad and I did on Live with Matt Rad, where like just ask all the questions we don't want to answer.
Yeah.
And go in on like do a technical episode and just see the love that it gets. I imagine we'll get so many more listeners to that than our thoughtful
6,000 YouTube subscribers.
Speaking of things I don't want to talk about, or maybe other people don't want me to talk about, I did my first to-camera video today on Instagram. I don't know if...
I saw that.
I did because I was like, I wanted to get questions in, so I did I sat down, I did 122 takes until I got something that wasn't just a stream of...
That's a waste of your time.
Ums and ahs, yeah.
Sorry.
But no,
it was not only hot, but it was cute.
It wasn't that bad. But I did a call for questions, kind of, hey, we're doing another AMA, send your questions, voice memo, the details, and kind of tell us what you're thinking about. Here's what I've been thinking about. And then the story was like, and I had listed like things that were on my mind, including what we were just talking about before we came on.
Yes.
And some other stuff that was a little edgier. And it just got the story. Because I guess, can you only do 4 stories in a row? I don't know. Was the video too long?
No, you could do as many as you want. I think up to like 50 maybe, but Instagram Recorder only lets you do like up to 4, I think.
I don't know. I didn't know how to use it, so I was like, I just thought it was Mark Zuckerberg was just immediately press the button.
Uninterested.
delete it.
Yeah.
Or that was just, just being censored because what I have to say is so important. That's how I took it. It wasn't just some dude who didn't know how to use Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, we're back with our second AMA episode.
We are.
I've been looking forward to this one more than most. I really liked the last AMA. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I felt like I got the most out of it than other formats we've been exercising.
It's funny, we spent like a half an hour on each question or comment, and it still felt like rapid fire.
Yeah, this is...
there's so much further you can go on all of them.
Tonight's going to be reminiscent of Dante's Inferno, and we are going to go for 7 hours. So
the many rings of hell.
Get ready. Strap in.
We should do a conversations quiz show.
With
with the big buzzers and just people pressing the buzzer really slowly.
Also
answering for an hour.
As a prerequisite here, if it I guess a precursor, that's the wrong word, which is alluding to what I'm about to say, which is thanks Armin from Mini Kebab for the mezcal from my birthday in March that we have not opened and we're drinking it now. So if it gets a little weird tonight, there's mezcal at play.
The 4th Rabbit Karu Agave Spirit from South Africa. Yeah.
It's like 400 bottles of that or something.
It's a beautiful label.
It's yummy.
So
really?
Thanks, Armin.
Yeah.
Miss you.
So, what are we trying to do with time here per? Are you're gonna call it? Okay, Graham's gonna give us time. First one.
I think we should just dive in. Yeah.
And this is the name. Yeah. Do we know the handle? No. First question is from Tim Mann or Thought. They're not all questions; they're observations.
Tim Mann booked a consultation with me this week for PMC. So
fantastic.
Recognize that name.
All right, here we go.
Hey fellas, thanks for listening to this. I have been loving the podcast and really enjoying how just how you guys are kind of intersecting art and the mental side of it and psychology and in some ways philosophy of what we're doing. I've just been really loving it, and it's just been so good to apply some of these things to my own life and career. My question is this, similar to last week's question that you asked, Brian, if you guys could push the magic button for yourself, what would that look like?
Shit.
And if you were there, And as a follow-up to that, I am not sure if this is the right way to phrase it, but is that the best outcome? Like, is it even worth it to be able to push a magic button? And are these things like hard work and striving towards goals and I guess just the process of getting to where we want to be, or getting the things that we want, or the outcomes that we want, are those things better in themselves? And would it even be beneficial to us as human beings and as artists to stop and have everything we want?
Well, that's more than one question. That's well, first he flipped it on us, which is fucking great.
Yeah.
Totally bold, and we talk all the time. It's a way to sort of break, to sort of open the door for clients, is to say how hard some of these very simple questions are, even for us to answer. And that we sort of continually keep coming back to them because they're such useful questions, and your answers will be updated over time. I think the thing about incentives is that's a whole other question. I can hit that real quick and then we can go back, because I think we were just having this discussion at dinner about for some people who've had trust funds or whatever however fortunate their financial situation may have been, is having material needs met, does it automatically dampen drive? And I've always been skeptical of this idea because there are so many other incentives other than not being homeless. There's the way you're regarded by other people is such a powerful incentive. The social incentives are so great that the basic survival and material threats to material survival to me just seem like not the best motivators. And also the notion that if people have if people don't have to worry about money, right? And that implies stress to me. Worrying about money implies stress. So I think the claim would be that some people are making often is that, I'm circling back, is that it is necessary for people to have the threat of being on the street in order to become better people. I don't believe that's true. I think there are many more ways to climb hierarchies, and there's much more in the milieu of incentive than just the material. Like the sense of mastery is a huge motivator. So to put energy into a practice and to notice that you're getting better, hugely motivating. To have other people regard what you're doing as useful and interesting and even important, huge motivators. This is all a big question around universal basic income and if it would destroy the world. And I think it remains to be seen. And I think the world is far too complicated to just say, push the button and everybody gets $100,000 a year to work with. You might have a lot more alcoholics because now they can afford fucking liquor. You know, there's a lot of complexities in these issues, and there's a lot of other things happening in the economy. You know, you could see prices going up because everybody's is flush with cash. Like there's a lot to it. So super interesting topic. I don't know that we could really tackle it here. But in a way, you know, I lean more toward yes, like cover material survival. Like, let's cover that. Like, we don't want our kids worried by proxy because we're worried. That can lead to maladaptive compensation or coping. So, yeah. Well, I don't know what you guys think. I'm just sort of riffing on that.
So that's great, all of it, and we could go all night on it because there's so much there.
Yeah.
As I heard Tim's question, he was doing what we do to clients. And as Spider says, the magic button exercise, we use it as a way of, quite often people are bound by realities.
The practicalities.
They're trapped.
Yeah.
And they you know, they're pushing on the door. And the question often is just like, well, have you tried pulling? And it's like, oh yeah, it opens this way. You know, so it's a way of opening, of getting access to maybe some space that they're scared of or don't see as possible or whatever. Because we're just riffing. It's just words. So as I understand it, Tim asked us if the button was pressed, would we get up in the morning? Would I get up in the morning and master a record? Would Michael get up in the morning and continue writing his book and serving his clients? Would you mix? You said on your Live with Matt Rad you would. And Spider, would you work with PMC and would you?
I've already been
What would you do?
called out.
That was the first question. So I think we should.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I
we
want
should
to answer
that.
No, I agree. That's why I wanted to sort of
yeah.
maybe get that out of the way.
Having already said this and called out, like on that quicker platform, we have more time to go through on a bit deeper note on these topics on our format that we've chosen here. Yes, I would, but after hearing it come from Tim's mouth, I don't have a solid answer based on data, right? Like I don't know what it's like to not do what I do on the regular since I'm 17, since I'm 15, really. I don't really know what it looks like. So when I think about the short answer is, yeah, I'd probably still mix records. And then I think like, I really want to be in Paris next week. Like I really want to go to Copenhagen. Like I really want to go to these places and I want to experience life. So would I do it as consistently as I am now? I don't know, but it is my true love. Like today, I was just geeking out with Rory and Spider on the mic quickly about discovering something on my mix bus today. Like that's invigorating to me, and I really do love it genuinely, and crossing new boundaries in mixing and making things sound taller and deeper and wider. Like this is definitely what I live for, but I also live for a lot. So I'm going to answer the question by saying I really don't know. I don't know what pressing that button looks like for someone like myself. And I love that. I've never been asked that question because I've never been workshopped by you guys in the traditional sense.
In
but I was a prototype
way.
For
10 years.
For 10 years.
Yeah.
But I've never been asked that question, and I'm taking it to heart, and I'm going to think about it, and we're going to talk about it maybe another time on another episode.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's a great question. What about you, Rory?
I want to throw it to Michael. Because Michael is probably the closest to having pushed this button in a way. You got a little headroom and you took it and ran. So, but I mean, and now you're in the middle of it. I'm interested in.
I took it and skateboarded.
Took it and tumbled.
Scarred.
Yeah, oh shit. Michael just showed us his wounds.
And his armpit hair is also being shown to us right now.
Sorry.
Okay.
That was not on purpose. For the record, everyone. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when I heard that question. First of all, props to like turning it on us. He's like, "What's up, guys? You guys give advice. What's inside of you?" So I just want to let you know that humanity is inside of me. We are definitely trying to figure out the answers to that very question ourselves, which is why we ask the questions to others. I've definitely asked that question, and I was actually asked that question by Rory and Spider. What was it, like 8 months ago now?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I would travel, I would go home, I would see my family, I would spend more time with my cousins, I would still design, I would do creative work. And then I did that. And what I realized is that, there's still things under the surface that plague me, that rattle around in my head and cause issues that I would love to push a button and get rid of. And then I thought about that. I thought about, well, if I got rid of all the bad, would I have all the good? Could those things exist without each other? 1, 2, probably could. I would press the button if I could. The other part I was thinking about is this idea of the fact that there's something about the motivation of solving problems and serving others for me, where knowing that one person could be a vehicle for change for more than one other person. I don't know if that's universal, but it's definitely something for me I've always found. Like, I had the money to step away from working completely, and there was never like a week where I didn't feel like I wasn't not I wasn't serving any value. Actually, there wasn't a week that went by that I didn't reflect at any point and say and observe the value that I had served that week, whether it was just to show up for someone, whether it was to just experience parts of life that I hadn't before, or like to affect me or to affect others as a result of me being affected. So, yeah, if I could press the button, what would I want? I think was the question. It's been a...
The question is really, would you press it?
Well, actually, the way we ask the question, we're the ones pressing the button, and what the button does is gives you a middle class existence until you die. So it gives you freedom. It is UBI. It's sort of idealized UBI where everything is taken care of: kids, college education, healthcare,
cars, vacations,
but just like suburban living,
not private jets. But
just
a Tesla. It's
good living,
upper middle class.
And the idea is you now don't have to provide for yourself. What would you do with that time? Is there? Would you go and study to be a doctor? Is that something that you always wanted, but like you can't stop your life for 8 years to do it? Or that's what it's about. Is kind of because we quite often we'll ask that question, and someone is like, "Well, I'd never fucking mix again. I know that for sure because I want to be a producer. Mixing is just something they have to do."
Or I wouldn't do a studio here. I'd do it on Hawaii or something like that.
Yeah, that's the kind.
Where
of
do you
stuff
want to wake
that
up in the morning? All these kinds of bigger questions
that it surfaces for us.
Yeah, that's a fun exercise, and that could take all evening.
Yeah,
to really go through.
I would do what I do, but I would do it in New York. Would be my answer. Press the button.
We ask people a lot about that. Where and what we ask people to describe a day, like sort of an ideal day. Like we did with Brian. And
I would walk to the West Village, and I would get an espresso, and I would look up. And then walk some more, and then I'd head back to my studio, and I'd mix some records, and then I would go downstairs, and I would go out and get another espresso, and look up, and then I would go back. That's what I would do every day. Probably wind up getting a charred leak at Via Carota, maybe a couple more bites, and then go back to work again. Yeah,
sounds good.
Sounds great.
Sounds like a good life. The interesting thing first I should answer it, and
yes,
it's a very tough question for me, and we always acknowledge that when we do workshops with people, because I think that there's so much stuff that I want to do, and so much stuff that I'm interested in that I just don't have time to get into. So I think I probably would stop mastering, and I probably would stop doing acoustics, and I would leave a lot of space for thinking and walking and writing and talking and learning.
Sounds like a reset.
A kind of reset, yeah.
Find a new mission, a new purpose.
Yeah, and there are specific puzzles I would like to solve with electronics and with audio stuff, but more I would like to sort of spend more time in this space of thought and learning and growing and challenging myself in that way. That's what I would use the time for. I wouldn't sit around by the pool. That's not who I am. So there would be a lot of thinking and work done. It just wouldn't look, because I think about, Tim alluded in his question, well, if you take away, let's say the second half of his question was, okay, so what would you do if the button was pressed? But the second half, as I understood it, was, well, what if you take away that pressure? Does it somehow, is it a bad thing? Is that pressure something that fuels us?
Yeah, and that's what I'm skeptical of.
Yeah. And you were touching on that, Spider. And for me, that's another tricky question for me personally, because we've started using this phrase that the work is a stone, upon which you sharpen yourself. I don't know where one or other of us got it, Spider, but we've started kind of using it. And it's like the work serves more than the purpose of just making money. It's a place.
It must.
It's a driver that gets you out into the world to meet people, to express the best version of yourself, to show up, right? But there is work where, you don't sharpen a knife on any stone. The stone has to be harder than the metal. If it isn't,
It'll
you're
crumble and
you're just rubbing,
you're
rubbing,
cutting
rubbing,
rocks.
rubbing, 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 and the knife is never sharper,
Yeah.
and the rock is crumbling,
Yeah.
and it's a dead end. So there has to be some sort of, you would hope for some validity to the work, some higher purpose. Now, if someone is working at the corner store and supporting their kids, is there a higher purpose?
Sure.
So you know what I mean? I'm saying, is there a higher purpose than that, really, ultimately, than feeding kids? And so it's kind of like, you want to be careful that it's like, if you're not curing cancer, you're a deadbeat. It's like, we're not saying that.
Yeah.
But for everyone, I think, is on a personal journey with that of discovery of, for me, it's hugely important that I am at the limits of my ability. Like it to me, that's not being there is dying. It's just a kind of death. So I find that crucial. And my dad worked in a factory all his life, and I don't know that he was ever at the limit of his ability, because he was a very bright dude doing mechanical work. But I have massive pride in what he did to raise a family of 5 kids, and So you have to be careful with this, with the language around it. But I do think, something that we talked about at dinner last week, John, was like my frustration sometimes at working very hard, sharpening a stone in a particular room or on a particular record that is futile. Mm-hmm. It's like the record is a copycat record, badly put together, and unappreciated when the work is done. There's no satisfaction in getting it across the line except getting paid. Or a room where it's a client who can't tell the difference with bad ingredients, who doesn't, and the end product is like, we went from a 3 to a 5 out of 10. It's like, it doesn't. Now, you've made the point, Spider, this is the last thing I'll say. You've made the point that we may not get this satisfaction in the moment with these clients or with these rooms or with these records of like someone, sort of the whole thing lighting up and the world changes, right? But it may be that that's the stepping stone for them. That maybe 6 months later, that moment was pivotal in how they came to understand what a record could be.
Yeah, that's
or
a
what
trailhead
could
for
be.
something else. Yeah.
And there's something to that point. But I do want my efforts to be useful in the world.
I'll jump in there and just piggyback off of, I said I'd do what I do and I would do it in New York. That's not really the honest truth. The honest truth is something closer to, I would do what I do it in New York, but also donate time to fly up to Stanford or Johns Hopkins or somewhere where they're studying the way audio memory influences the, dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And like, that's something that's a calling that you can't do if you're not financially free in my place. And that's where I would want to lend my audio engineering skills to those kind of, potentially even get into VR experiences where you could remind people of their wedding night or their prom or something, where they have these strong memories and give them peace for however long that lasts. That's something that turns me on a lot, and there's just no way to do it without financial stability. And then the other part to that question, or the back half of the question, where Rory was going with it as well, I don't really know a time, like when thinking about how long I and others alike me have been doing, been a part of the music industry, a substantial part, most of that time, 80+% of the years, has been a month away from poverty for the entire time. So that's not enough of a motivator to. You're still doing what you're doing because you want to do it, not to make the next month. There are lots of people
motivated not to be in poverty who are.
Yeah, exactly. That's never. I've never really reflected on this, and then we just touched on a little bit before dinner, Spider, you and I. That's never. I don't. Yeah, there's more to it there that I'd like to think about and kind of understand around what really drives and motivates creation. It can't be financial stability. That's a potential byproduct of becoming successful at art, but that can't be the true motivator.
I mean, in studies, a financial reward has been a negative motivator in creative work.
Exactly.
And I know I'm simplifying there, and we won't be able to tease out the nuances there, but it is financial reward is a positive motivator for sort of mundane, repetitive tasks that eventually robots and AI will take over.
Yeah.
So what's left?
So something that comes to mind was another thing that Matt and I talked about on Tuesday on Live with Matt Rad, which was, one of the questions was, when did you feel like you made it? And I didn't have an answer to making it, but Matt's point of view on making it was great because he actually took it literally, which was when I made something that sounded like things that I was listening to. Yeah. And I was like, that's an actual motivator.
You made the thing.
I made the thing that I and others can respond to in a way that I responded to something that I never thought possible to have been made in my speakers, in my world. And that happens now more regularly than it did. But like the idea of attempting some idea, some sort of impact, some sort of emotional connection and feedback in a move that you're making, whether it's in a mix or an arrangement or something, and it paying off, that's a motivator. Getting as many of those moments compacted into now a 1:58 minute song is pretty challenging to do. As the songs get shorter, you have to have more of those moments in shorter spans of time. But that's what excites me. That's definitely a motivator. Making moments in music feel like you get the goosebumps on your skin, and that's a true motivator. So I want to spend actual time thinking about what Tim is asking and like what are the real motivators besides this is what I've been doing for so long and I don't know a world without it and I like it and I love it. That's the
world of motivation is still a mystery. I mean, we do studies to try to isolate motivation and what drives our behavior, but we don't know. We can't know about any given situation what the complex interaction of multiple levels of motivation are. We can't know it about ourselves. It's kind of it's a challenge.
I'm sure that Michael, you've come you must have covered this in all of your lives with some people or probably with many people. But like this creative music life that we're living, that most of our audience are living, it's not normal to have your, the money you make to pay for rent and food and the meaning and the creativity in your life all overlap in the same thing. So a lot of people I work in a factory. I put this thing into the box. So there's no meaning there. Now, my meaning comes from supporting my family, and my creativity comes from the cabinet that I'm working on in the garage for the last 6 months, or my
hobby,
my car that I'm repairing, or my motorbike, whatever. So there are 3 separate strands. For us, we bundle them all in together, and it's very complicated. And it's one of the reasons why we've met people with all the awards and all the money. Matt was talking about some of these people on the thing, and it's like they're fucking miserable. And then there are other people who are having a blast, and it's very complex how the money, the creativity, and the meaning overlap in our work, and of course that's going to be different, And I think that the thing about bringing, Dale's conversation last week about where we sort of explored for a minute just how much he loves what he does, but also how much he loves individual songs, how they break his heart. Almost on a daily basis, which I really resonate with. That's really interesting. What that's not normal. I don't know that that's normal.
That it's not normal that can happen to humans or humans that are touching the records.
Well, I think that
humans, music wouldn't exist on the scale of importance that it is to so many people if those moments were not happening.
Oh no!
Countless
in
amounts
music,
of times.
it's normal, but in the world, making your money,
I see what you're
finding your meaning, and having your creative outlet, and maybe creative and meaning, Michael, they're probably more intertwined, But there's a, so it's just. That's the norm in the music business. And probably probably in most of the other arts too, and where the arts cross over, like design for you, Michael. So, but it's just interesting that in real life, if you work in the bank, maybe there really is meaning in that for people. Maybe there really is creativity in that work. In science, I could see that, so, and that's,
I mean, if you're solving problems, you're creative. I mean, this is
Agreed. Completely, yeah.
I think we sort of say, I'm a creative person. I'm not a creative person. This is, I don't think we're really using that word well.
yes. Yeah. Fair.
I mean, if you're figuring out what's wrong with a vintage car and figuring out some way to reproduce a part that can't be found anymore, like that's utter creativity.
Yeah.
I mean,
What if you're thinking creatively about how to maximize the day that the day you're in the factory, and how things can go by quicker, and how to get out and do that's the
you can
creative
be creative
thinking.
about your money, the way you're managing money at home. You and your wife could be collaborating to creativity is everywhere.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
the output of it is different. I would
Sure,
say,
of course,
because there's less to take home, for lack of better terms, in that sense of it, than like, oh, we made this thing, and here's a thing, and someone painted a thing, someone designed a thing, someone made a UI interface that we can touch and use. There's different different outputs there, but yeah,
we should probably move on. Graham.
I haven't answered the question.
Oh,
but
sorry.
I think,
no, go. You should do it.
Sorry, Spider.
But we can. I mean,
No, you should.
I think and actually, I think, Rory, when we started asking clients this question in workshops, I think I had a way of answering it, but over the last 2 years, it's I think it's in a different place now. Like when I think about what I do, supporting people who make the most popular music in the world, supporting the community of people who make the most popular music in the world.
Yeah.
Given the financial freedom, I would go deeper into it. I would assemble a team and make it so they could dedicate time and energy to developing the informational ecosystem and the institutions that shape the individuals who are the future members of this community. Whatever that looks like, whether it's a new cryptocurrency that we can all rally behind and believe in, or a working, a real working facility that's also a kind of learning environment. Whatever shape it takes, that will be discovered in the process, but I would just dedicate more of my time and energy to that, which is really the track that I'm on. I think I've always lived with the button pushed, whether or not it was. I think John's laughing and smiling, and I think he
just have flashbacks of 10 years. Yeah.
I mean, the way that I've lived, the manner in which I have tolerated.
Makes me want to cry, to be honest.
It's a little deep.
R.I.P. 7-Eleven sandwiches.
Yeah, I've slept in Central Park. I've slept in abandoned floors of buildings in Manhattan, just to be there to make the record. Like whatever the budget was, like there were things I just knew I should do, and I did whatever it took. Sleeping in cars, whatever the hell. So I think that sense of calling and meaning is consistent for me, and there isn't anything that I'm spending a considerable amount of time on that isn't to that end. It's just that I have maybe things taking up my day that aren't where I'm fully leveraged,
Amen.
But it's not different to what I'm doing.
No, it's not. It's actually quite nearer than adjacent. It's just not to the maximum potential that we know you have. We know we don't like that word, but
sure.
I know that. I'll use potential for you. You have more potential. We do.
I'll take it.
again.
I've seen it. I've witnessed it. So it's actually not even potential. It's the knowing of what's capable, and it's not being leveraged properly. That's the best way to put it.
We're on our way.
We always, some clients get very uncomfortable with these questions, and we always point out that when we turn them inward, because it started, Spider and I were doing this to each other, which is how we sort of happened on this format at all.
Yeah.
Not that we invented some fucking,
No, it's all intuitive.
It's not equals MC squared or whatever. It's just,
we didn't
they're
adopt
just
a structure.
But they're hard questions, and they're scary. Like the stuff that's coming to mind with what I would do with my time is like, I can't even say it.
I know.
I feel like,
I want you to say something.
But
say one before we move on. Say one of them.
It's like what we talked about, 3 or 4 episodes ago. It's like the idea of being a defender of the power of music or the artfulness of music, or like wanting to do that kind of stuff. It feels very strange to me to be in this place in my life. The thing that got cut off on Instagram today, I was talking about how we've lost touch with the power of music, and we're sort of focused completely on competition. And it's like, it's ridiculous to complain about that in LA. It's like you're in LA. It's like complaining about blue skies. This fucking blue sky is getting me down, It's like you've come to the place where we do this, and it's an incredible stone upon which you sharpen yourself. But it's also, it's like you have this 100 meters race, and because the other 3 runners are kind of hopping and waving their arms, you kind of start doing it too. And it's like, well, wait, I can fucking run fast. I could just sprint. Like I could stop doing what other people.
Well, that's where the compassion comes in, because all of us will start running that way if we're around people who run that way.
This is my point.
This is what we're made to do.
It's not a judgment of people because we're all in it.
Yeah.
It's more of like, fuck, man, I'd love to untie some people and let them go.
That's it.
Me included.
And when it happens, it's so gratifying. It's so rewarding to see people develop. I mean, seeing John, you grow over the years has been one of the more meaningful things in my life. I mean, this is like, I don't know that it gets deeper than that.
No. Well, I mean,
I agree.
Like, how long have I known you, Michael, properly? Like 18 months, like maybe 2 years. And it's like for where you were when I met you to like writing a fucking book. You know what I mean? And like not like the way you're writing it, with the commitment to the interviews and the work you've done. I mean, there's more work on one of the pages that you post on Instagram, the drawings and stuff, than I've done on any thought forever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so dense, it's so rigorous, as someone who loves to talk about rigor. So, it is happening. And it's
mutual development, that's really what I thrive on. So that's why I lean into these sort of things.
I mean, working on records today, and I mean, all week, some records I'm really excited about. And a transition approach is, I'm making a move, and I make a move, and it goes by, and I come back to it, and I'm like, Spider would say, go further. Let's go further. Okay, push it further. Just like it's there. It's is it as far as it can go? And then what I tend to do is like, I go as far as I think you'd want it to be, and I come back closer to the rough just a little bit, so I don't get like, come on, why is it like that? It's just like, get it to be 7/8 of the way towards where Spider would want it, and it's usually right,
In
3 dB down from Swedeans.
In Prague 4, in brackets, Spider made me do it.
Exactly.
He wasn't even here. He made me do it.
Go too far. Just go too far.
But you can't unhear certain voices.
We integrate
in your discipline. It's impossible. I can't unhear Tony saying, "Why are you doing so much? Do less."
I can't hear Robbie Robertson next to me. Like, we call on these, almost like the ghosts of the people that we've known. They're still around, but their voices, they live. Like, you can adopt. Like, when you've listened to records with people enough times, you can sort of adopt their point of view, and you listen, and it gives you so much perspective.
Hey, it's helping.
Yeah.
It just helps. Like, I mean, I don't know. We should move on.
I know. This is, I mean,
we could go all night,
go deeper and
we
deeper
will.
into it.
Yeah.
Bradley Will is our next question. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, this is Bradley Will. I really enjoy what you're doing with the podcast. These conversations are immensely stimulating, so I'm very eager at the opportunity to kind of jump in and stoke the fire a little bit. And so what I've been thinking about lately is, as artists, upcoming, performers, writers, band members, the way that we learn and get into the industry more often than not, and certainly in my experience, has been you're kind of just out in the wild by yourself. It's you and a group of friends. You're learning to perform together. You're learning to write together. You're learning to be a unit. You're learning interpersonal skills. If you're lucky, you're getting your hands dirty and learning some business. And there's not really an institutional way to get onboarded with this kind of stuff. As an example, if you were to join a large company, something with a pre-existing culture, you're brought in at presumably a ground level where you're an intern or, your entry-level position, and you are kind of steered around a lot of the potholes and hazards, and, there's a lot of wisdom at your disposal in the form of your coworkers and, everybody who's been in this institution for a long time. They're like, they can give you feedback. It's like, if you're going to criticize somebody's work, maybe come up with an alternative at the same time. Whereas, if you're a 14-year-old and you're in a band, you usually got to learn the hard way that, okay, there's a way to provide criticism or to express, your dissatisfaction with something. And so for all of these domains, whether it's emotional intelligence, business savvy, creative, just creative potential, we're really just in the dark rubbing sticks together, as a bunch of young people. And there's really not that long form institution. There's not that onboarding process. And I wonder, if it's possible to even codify this sort of thing at all. Because it's a creative pursuit, and creativity is often a journey into the unknown. And so it's really hard to define something that, by its very nature, you're constantly reinventing. And, there's not a roadmap for this sort of stuff. But I think for those simple, fundamentals, how can we get those? How can we provide those for young people? Mentorship is a great way to do it, but it's somewhat limited in its reach. And what I enjoy about what you guys are doing and what Matt Rad is doing with his Live at Matt Rad podcast is that, in a sense, the topics that are discussed are mentorship without the one-on-one. It's a little innovative. I don't know. It's filling a lot of holes in my personal education, playing music and performing and producing and mixing and everything that comes with it. So thank you guys. And again, so the question is, how can we really introduce young artists into the fundamentals of these sorts of things? Thanks again.
Damn, yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about that.
Who did Keith Richards mentor? You know what I mean? What are the generational band? Does that structure exist? Do teenagers get access to successful bands and become assimilated into the ways?
I guess it used to with support acts and being on the road. Go, Michael. What were you going to say? You had a...
Yeah. So another great question. Super thoughtful. You said something about the onboarding process of the creative or roadmap for this stuff. And I think the stuff he was referring to was emotional intelligence, business savviness, and creative potential, or maybe realization of some sort. I feel like there's plenty of sources with all of this information. Sometimes it's asking people the right questions, finding people who are willing to answer those questions. You can't necessarily always directly ask someone about emotional intelligence, though you can glean it off people. You can study up on it, then find better questions to ask and explore those things. I don't there isn't an onboarding, like a formal onboarding in certain creative industries as there are in like a 9 to 5 business culture setting. But that said, I've been in and worked at many corporate jobs that had quote unquote onboarding, and it was shit. It was like not even a day, and it was run by HR who wasn't even doing the function I was doing, had no idea about what my job was like. It was like, here's your benefits, okay, and here's your boss, okay, have a good one, you're onboarded. And people failed miserably in that environment. And you mentioned something about how, being in that kind of environment means that there's sort of pre-built-in wisdom and pre-built-in guides. And that's also not true. I think it depends, certain organizations, like certain pockets of subcultures, might have more standards, whether that's emotional intelligence standards or business standards or creative standards, right? It's going to vary. But there isn't a one size fits all either. So what I found from an organizational point of view that worked were the people that onboarded themselves, the ones that were asking every team member what they did and why and how things fit and how it worked, and took things apart and had suggestions for how I could do my job better, who hadn't even met me yet, but knew the role I served and was starting to connect the dots. So I think it's the people with initiative, people with the right people around them, and people who are asking the right questions that are going to be able to quote unquote onboard in a creative environment, a professional environment, whatever the environment may be. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think this idealized version of corporate onboarding is definitely off. I also think that John and I lived a kind of onboarding, in the Tony Maserati mix camp, and it was, there were folks younger than you coming on board, and we were all part of that, and there was a lot that was effective about that culture that we cultivated there. And, looking back, there are obvious, if there was a Rory involved and some deeper level knowledge on certain things, like it would have been even better. Mm-hmm. I think this is a really great point to bring up because it could be better. Like, I love this idea of people coming here to work in this industry. Most people are, leaving family behind to come here to make their way. And what do they land into? A bunch of isolated people working in dark rooms with shitty monitoring, struggling to get ahead and sharing all kinds of bad ideas. Could that be improved? Yes. I mean, we've been a part of a small improvement in that area.
I feel like I've been onboarded.
Yeah.
I feel like I was actually onboarded, meaning, hey, this is how I do things. Try it. Go do it. Show me how you do things, and let's talk about it. Right? Like there was an actual onboarding.
I feel like the whole career should be, like the early stage of the career should all be onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
The whole and continuing. It's like continuing education, continuing refinement.
I mean, this is my issue with the perceived onboarding coming from the institutions that do exist on digital platforms like Mix with the Masters and even Pensado's Place to a degree, which is let's watch or listen to someone do something the way they figured out how to do it, and because they do it, now I should do it that way because I've seen someone who makes records do it. That's how I should do it. And the onboarding that I'm trying to tease out and discuss that you and I went through, me a little bit different because I was younger and I was like sat in the seat. And I mean, you did it at some point, but quite literally,
Yeah, I was
like,
very much on my own.
Yeah,
it was difficult.
I don't remember any tricks. I I don't do any of the tricks that I watched Tony do in the room. I don't try to do what he did. I learned professionalism from him. I learned how to be in the room, how to exist, how to talk when the time is right to talk, how to treat a client, how to curate the room so the vibe is right for the right people to show up to, how to communicate with label executives, managers, independent artists, the sister of the artist, the brother, the mom, dad. You learn how to be a whole as a creator from an experience like that in onboarding. And the institutions that I reference in these platforms are not doing that. They're telling a fun story about how, what you did to the Weeknd's vocal. Okay, I've touched the Weeknd's vocal too. It comes pretty caked on with a lot of stuff that you can't control. So how is that making me a better mixer, not having control over the Weeknd's vocal? Like that's not an example of how to get someone to be better at what they do and onboarding them into the culture of what it's like to make records from start to finish. I could give 20 examples of what I've done to famous people's vocals, and it's not going to help you learn. It's just like, it doesn't help me learn what I did to the vocal, what I did to the record and how I felt the record and how I communicated and how I wrote the right type of email to solicit, potential diving deeper into what this record could be. Like there's so much more that onboarding, to keep going back to that term, could do for us in our community. And I sympathize with Bradley here. I don't know where it is, and we're trying to do our small part, and I'm glad that it's resonating to a few people. But it came out of it stemmed from the lack of finding it for ourselves. Like I'm highly uninspired by people that are doing what we're doing. I don't like. I'm not really gaining much from the industry that we're a part of, sadly, and I'm gaining a lot from other industries, both parallel and perpendicular to it, that cross at some point, and there's a spark of inspiration there to pull from and bring in. And I just keep hearing the same looped story in a different voice. So anyway, I hope I didn't go too grim there, but I don't know the answer to the question, because I don't think there is one. I don't think there is a way to codify an opportunity to onboard mass amounts of people I don't think it works.
Yeah, codify is a little tricky, but I think it's more about being a culture of. I mean, this is one of the things Julia Galef gets into in her rationality, in her training people to be more rational, is they only do it in groups in person to cultivate the culture of curiosity, to build the different kinds of rewards where curiosity, like changing your mind, is then a social gain, not a social loss, if the culture is such. And it struck me when you were talking, John, about having been, let's say you had a good bit of success onboarding yourself on Long Island in your own studio to a point, and then around 25 you met Tony and me, and then there was this next level of sort of onboarding.
Okay.
And having been onboarded, you were then better able to onboard your assistants and to cultivate the best in them. And a lot of people maybe didn't have that example, so they're not going to be so good at doing it, which is kind of an interesting idea.
And I'm taking that very seriously. I use the word responsibility. I don't think naturally that I'm inclined to want to mentor a ton of people. I'm naturally inclined to.
That's tricky.
Yeah, but I mean, through your lifespan or through your career span, I don't know what tons means, but one at a time is enough. But I have found ways to do it remotely, meaning certain people that I find are like minds, sonically speaking, personality, seekers in general of of excellence, I'm going to be more inclined to offer notes and not notes like raise the snare drum, just like what are we trying to get here? And then there's like Graham sitting at the table. Like Graham comes over a few times a week and sits on the couch, and I've extended that. There are ways to do it without like, hey Graham, sit on the computer and mix this song that this client is hiring me. Like I'm not going to give that responsibility to Graham, but he can sit next to me and he can watch, he can ask questions, and he can throw things out there, and I can either address them in a way where we attempt them, which is most of the time, or I've already tried that, this is why it's not going to work. And then that's kind of how you mentor from afar and also near. But I find myself compelled to do it, even though I don't really want to. Not for you, Graham. I love doing it with you. You're very kind and easy to be around. But I don't necessarily really want to. But I know. But what Bradley's bringing up to the discussion is what. There's no other way. There's no other way to not like something Rory has said on previous episodes that I was trying to interject with earlier, but then it wasn't relevant anymore. Which is, I think that we're existing in a music industry, like we missed 4 decades ago. Like we'd be better in the industry 4 decades ago when certain types of records were being made. I think our sensitivities, our proclivities would be more appropriate with wider dynamic ranges and not so caked in vibes for weeks at a time when every iterance of the demo has been bounced every fucking hour. So there's just 21 versions before it even gets to the mix process where you start unraveling things. Like we would better exist in a different time. And I'm not nostalgic. I'm not a golden age thinker where I wish I was born in the 20s in Paris, even though I do. But I'm not like, I love now. I love the time now. But there's something missing, and if we can have any say, if I can have any say as a mentor into getting records to sound better than they did in 1982, and not worse than they did in some of the worst time period of recorded, compressed music, and I just want to do my part, because I think records are sounding worse than they did a long time ago, and I don't know why they're sounding worse. I think we have so many tools to have improved the sonic landscape of records, and instead we're all discussing vibe and energy of records when so were those people, and they also sounded good, and they were also hit songs. So you can have hit songs that have vibe and sound good.
Nat King Cole's a vibe.
Yeah, Nat King Cole.
It's 1959, motherfucker.
I mean, that shit sounds good.
It sounds good.
It's like
and it's a vibe.
It's all of it, right? And I think we're missing the trifecta of all of it. Great song, vibe, sonic, full high fidelity sonic experience that can also be distorted and vibey and wavy and spacey and all the words that people think are going to get sucked out by a quote unquote clean mix or something, or a translatable mix. And there's ways to do it all, and that comes from what Bradley's diving at, which is mentorship and understanding why these records were made, how they were made, how they could have been made, and why they weren't made that way. All wrapped into a final person. Anyway, that's a long riff on why I feel responsible for what we're setting out to do. So I'm glad it's translating to Bradley.
Yeah, me too.
That was long-winded.
That's okay. These are good questions.
That's a jam.
Yeah, I think you guys have covered a lot of what I wanted to say. I mean, we are trying to do our bit here, and I think that the key question is for someone coming in, what are you trying to do? What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? Is it 1 billion streams? Is it success? Is it money? Like, you think about someone who wants to cook. Hey, I want to learn to chef. Okay, why? Because Mama, my Italian grandmother, sat me at her knee and we cooked every day, and it's just in my DNA. It's huge in my heart. Or I want to get laid. I want to be on the cover of whatever magazine. I want to be successful. I want to make money. I want to manage a lot of people. There's a lot of reasons to want to cook. And I think there's a lot of reasons to want to get into the music business. And I think what I'm seeing, is that the culture is pretty sick. The culture in the music business is just not sick. That sounds deviant. It's unhealthy. it's sad to me what's going on. I listened to a record, and I don't need to name it, that was referenced in a format with people that I like, and recently, and I just got to the first verse, and I hated how the record sounded, and I hated what I heard of how it was made. But the very first verse was about the guy fucking the chick anytime he wants. And I was like, there's a name for that. There's a name for when you fuck someone when they don't want. You know what I mean? It's like, this is not healthy. This is not useful in the world, right? This is not, we haven't moved the human project forward, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if a young kid is coming towards this business, you would say, well, why? What are you trying to achieve here? Because if you're trying to achieve copycat sort of mimicry of, so there are people who are successful communicating bad ideas about how they got there or what they do. They're very often very unself-aware. That's then mediated by Mix with the Masters or Pensado or Instagram. So it's sort of twisted and warped because there's a commercial handover between the already sort of the person who's not in touch with why they're doing it, and then it gets to a kid who's not sure why they're learning it. It's like it's broken all the way along, the connections. So it's no wonder that people are struggling, Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch to say about it, but I hope for a time when the sort of power of music and what it can be and how transcendent and uplifting and connecting it can be is that we're closer to that again.
Speaking of which, Trio Mondoli dropped a new video this week where they recruited the children from the village to sing with them.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
And it fucking gutted me, man.
Yeah.
Ooh. They come in about halfway through, the camera turns, and suddenly they're all singing in harmony, supporting them. It sounds real big in the iPhone mic stereo. It's deep.
Nice.
It's deep.
That's another level.
It's the real thing.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Next question. Oh, Gerhard Westphalen? Okay, got it. Here we go.
Hey guys, your conversations have helped me and countless others, but it's not really the most approachable for people just getting started with recording or whatever else it might be that they're interested in. Do you have any thoughts on how to reach those people and perhaps get them off to a better start right from the beginning? Are there currently any resources for that? And if not, what do you think needs to be created? Mentorship is obviously a major resource, but what about for those who aren't really ready for that step yet?
That's a great question. Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I did, a couple of years ago, work on a grant proposal to bring audio technology to middle and high school STEM programs. Mm. And that was very interesting to me to bring, because audio is playing more and more a part of our lives. It seemed only natural that the education into it starts sooner. And there's such a value for it in the middle school and high school environments where you've got choirs and high school band, and they could be recorded. And I know that some programs are doing this where every rehearsal is recorded and comments are made in between rehearsals by the students and the teachers. And that's sort of like SoundCloud-like comment timeline commenting. And you're sort of getting that, hearing oneself back as a musician or as an ensemble is really important. I think like I don't know of a resource. I don't know of a YouTube channel where the basics are really laid out. And I think that's part of the problem. Obviously, it's the fundamentals, the orientation is the way I've been referring to it, of approaching audio engineer. What is the point? What's the purpose? What is if human connection is not your standard, what is it? You're trying to make things sound good. What does that even mean? I would love for this resource to exist. And I think that's sort of the front line of outreach. Like, how young is it appropriate and meaningful to reach people with the importance of the quality of our collective archive of musical treasures? I don't know.
I think because it's fresh off the back of the last question, I don't think young people need to learn how to do anything. other than just fall in love with music. If music is for them, like create a space where people can really fall in love with it and really get carried away by it and really experience what it's capable of. And if that happens, the next steps will sort of become, they'll have the hunger and the drive to pursue the next steps.
So that could mean live performance, being in the presence of. But there's also, for me, 14 in the studio was magical.
Real play. What I mean is sort of play without competition. Driving it. Play without
it's
Instagram.
Not onboarding.
Play without phones. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm looking at the girls at home, and it's like, I don't care if Mirabelle learns a dope new art technique. I care that she learns to love art and to express herself through it. If we get that foundation right, she will learn new techniques. Sure. She will learn to oil paint or whatever.
That's her own set of motivations and all that. Yeah.
So sort of priming that original play space, that getting her in touch with her own creativity, turning the TV off and creating the space and joining in and supporting and encouraging, whatever is more important than actually upping her technique or her skill set or her knowledge base. So it's like helping her fall in love with it, helping her sort of build that muscle of creativity. And I think we're missing that bit. It sort of goes from like, I can play G and C, so now I'm going to pull down my top a little and get on Instagram and sing a song. And I'm 16 and it's fucking super weird already. And immediately it's corrupted. Immediately it's, we've got this negative loop and negative incentives. So creating more of an oasis or a little pocket where people can really fall in love with any creative discipline, design included, or writing or poetry or whatever, acting.
Sounds a lot like what school should be doing.
Right? Yeah.
It's interesting. I listened to somebody talking about how measurement can corrupt. I won't be able to go in deeper to it. There's oh God, David Snowden. He's a deep motherfucker, man. Yo, this guy, I mean, he's like crisis management, like writing the manual for the EU. Like, it's very, very deep stuff. I'll bring stuff up this week in our thread about it. I'm not going to be able to dive into it now, but I think like the way that young people are pushed into a testing system is, the way we're doing it is killing the creativity.
Yes.
It's killing the joy and the fun and the unlocking of innovation and, new inventions, new ways of thinking.
And what is Instagram?
Inspiration.
Snapchat, if not testing systems. You know what I mean? They are
a kind of measurement system. Yeah.
So
that's a dangerous aspect of it. It's more than that, but it's So maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Gerhard, that's a sick question. It's a very important question and one that I think we'll all have to get to.
Yeah, it's a fundamental question
to really address it, because what's the front line? What's the front line outreach?
I want to protect kids, young adults from the pressures of competing and learning and projecting and all of that stuff, and just bad ideas coming at them.
And keep the sandbox.
Encourage
the sandboxing going.
The childlike play. Yeah. Because the most creative and the best people that I've been around are people who manage to bring that into their adult life.
The best sessions I've ever been a part of are like that. Very playful, silly, and get really deep and powerful work done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael, what are you thinking on that?
Well, I interviewed a teacher today in high school.
That was really cool.
I caught about half of it. It was on and off for me.
It was really dope. I think it might have been my favorite so far because he was in class. It was ninth period with 10th graders. And so I was like, he told me this last night that he was going to be in class. So I was like, amazing. Very, very excited to like ask these kids and kind of crowdsource ideas about creativity. But they had to leave. So I was like, all right, I got one question. I just want to know of everyone in the class, like how many of you feel that you're a creative person? And no one raised their hand.
Whoa.
No one. And then
It's wild.
That's heartbreaking.
There was like 10 people, like a bunch of people left. There was like 10 people there. And he's like, he went through each person, was like, I know that none of this is true because you are like building cars and you are making pastries of all different kinds and like going through all of this. And then one girl said to him in private, pretty much like, I actually do feel like I'm creative. I just didn't want to raise my hand. And it's fucking crazy. And we went on this rant about it, about how high school is like the last possible place where like, and it's a long tear and it's worth listening to. It's about halfway through the live with Mike Kleba. But you have elementary school where you're playing and it's encouraged and they want you to do that. And then you get into high school or middle school, it starts to taper off. And high school, like you have this freedom and autonomy, but like also you're like locked in this building all day. So it's this weird, like you're an adult, but you're kind of not. And like, play is not an aspect anymore. And it's evident when, you know, you ask these kids if they think they're creative and they're even afraid to say it, even if they think they are. And so I asked one student, what does creativity even mean to you? She's like, it would mean that I'm free and open or something like that. And it's just like, damn. Fuck. Like, it's the last possible place, I feel like, where, you know, if you can get through high school, then you get into college, then you get into the quote unquote real world. If you have just been losing the feeling like you're a creative person, even though that isn't really a thing, you're always have the ability to create. There's something to be said about this feeling of not the identity of being a creative, but maybe it is actually. Maybe it's a little bit to do with like identifying as someone capable of being generative, creating new things, creating innovations in the world that can affect things. I think that to me was my takeaway from people not raising their hand and people not thinking they're creative, because I think that's the part they don't think they're capable of. Like, yeah, yes. I can draw, but whatever, you know, like, and that to me, that hit. And I'm excited because I'm interviewing another teacher who's teaching middle school. So working my way backwards. But yeah. That's what I have to say about it.
It's really, it's intense.
It is. Again, the social environment in high school, you didn't want to raise your hand. You know, you don't want to be singled out or, you know, whatever that, again, complex, too complex to put into words, but it is heartbreaking.
Shit show, I think, is the word.
Open
for
and
high school.
Open and creative. Like, that was, my high school years were very open and creative and free. Like, I don't know.
There was a distinction he made, which I really liked, was like, if you're creative, you're the fucking weirdos, and you're with them who all feel like they're creative. And I was like, that was me. Like, you know, like,
sure.
And then it's like, but then everyone else, like, you're either fully on board and you're like rebelling to be creative, which is weird, or like you can't, you know, identify.
Well, I think there's a really strong parallel here that you're bringing attention to, which is that high school is quote unquote preparing you for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And the studio, the audio engineer programs that do exist prepare you for an audio engineer career that doesn't exist anymore.
That once was.
Yeah, that once was. So, I mean, I'm the kid that didn't raise their hand to say that they're creative, because he was also playing music off of a sheet of paper in school, as well as improvising at home, but hiding in the practice room, improvising and playing the notes on the paper in the room, because I thought that's what had to be done, right? So there's this like, I would never have said I was creative, but I was playing music. So by default, you're creative to some degree, right? So there's like There's a lot going on in my head about that. But the preparation for what once was, it's like financial institutions, and like how to invest your money now is completely different than it was 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. And people that won at that game are preaching that it's the same game, and it's not the same game anymore. So what's his name? The question? Sorry, I don't want to be rude.
Gerhard?
Gerhard brings attention to something that is a deep fundamental that has just fallen out from the bottom, and none of us really know how to do it, or where to come at it, because you want to play, so you want to get Ableton, or you want to get Fruity Loops, or you want to get Pro Tools, and you want to have it as early as possible, and you want to play in the software. You want to develop some sort of inclination towards sounds that you like, and you want to demonstrate that so someone can press play on a device and hear something back that makes them feel
some kind of way,
right? And that's really where it begins. It also can end there by means of saying that what you just did might be a desired sound by millions of people later on at some point that you're going to stumble upon by doing it your way. And then the opposite side of that is there are a few rules that are meant to be understood, then broken, but you should understand them. And there's that part that I think that there should be a proper forum to access these fundamentals of recorded music that we have discussed on Live with Matt Rad, that people do discuss on Pensado's Place and Mix with the Masters, that you can get at an ASCAP Expo conversation. There are fundamentals of gain structure and volume and mic signal and line input, and there are these fundamentals that you do need to understand to a degree. I don't know where to point for those things, like to understand that right away, except for maybe some Live with Mad Rad conversations about gain structure. But that stuff needs to be forgotten, right? So you have to learn it to forget it, and it exists in the background. We've talked about that in episode like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in this. Like those things do need to, the preparation aspect is really the takeaway from, I want to listen to you and to your live from today, Michael, because that sounds interesting and also devastating, honestly, to the old me that would have been terrified to even respond in that room. I would have loved to hear that in classroom, like even asked, do you think you are? Because I feel like those kids now are going home tonight and they're remembering that question. Like that question is probably more meaningful to them than any world history textbook that they read that afternoon or something. Like, am I? I don't know. What is that even? Am I allowed to be? Am I supposed to be a lawyer because my dad is? Like, am I allowed to be something other than a dentist, or am I just going through the motions to get a dentist license? And I am now, making $125,000 a year, and I can, go fishing on the weekend, and that sounds great too. But like, is my path already sought out for me, or because someone asked that question on an Instagram live in my class? Coincidentally, will I think differently about the possibility of being creative? Like, I hope. Anyway.
It's interesting. It's an interesting question because we're going through it right now with Mirabelle. So Mirabelle is my younger daughter. She's 7. The kids are obsessed with Mandalorian at the moment. And Mirabelle has started making a Mandalorian outfit. So she covered her bike helmet in foil and she made the Mandalorian weapon with Lego parts and wood. She's probably listening because Sid will have this on speaker at home. And she made the little wrist weapon with the birds. What's it called?
Those.
All this stuff.
That's a good one. That's
Gets them out of a lot of scenarios.
So that's the plot. The plot point. Free card there. Get out of jail card.
Seriously.
So you're thinking, okay, how do we encourage and inspire without intimidating? So you go on YouTube and you Google Mandalorian cosplay, and there's a dude going all in. I didn't watch it. Sid told me about it. All in, making an incredible helmet. And the stuff people do with cosplay these days is outrageous. The talent and the commitment and everything. So you want to be, when you want to encourage play, you want to encourage, and this is at any level, 5, 10, 15. And and you want to inspire, but you don't want to intimidate or get people into metrics or competition too soon,
To measurement.
or in an unhealthy way. So it's like you want to raise the bar for people, have them look up, grow to it, but never be crushed by the expectation.
Yeah,
never.
it's hitting me that there are technological solutions to this too, like Apple releasing GarageBand is a step, right? So Logic is Logic before Apple was a deep ocean of possibilities. You could get really fucking down the rabbit hole. And GarageBand was like a accessible, easy, and there's even like a drum machine programming thing in my Tesla, right? So Elon Musk is like attempting to make the most, the funnest car ever, right? Or the funnest thing you own, doing a good job at it. And there's a music production thing in it, So I think you're right. I think like creating software and ways to interact with music and sound that can be even more intuitive and sort of powerful for young people. I think innovation in that space is probably important for helping people fall in love with music. If young people can make really cool sounding things, but not too easy, but not too hard.
But the cynic in me then comes out with I love the access to tools like GarageBand, but then because of the lack of understanding of, let's take one example, like the the how-to of stemming out something, right? If someone else is going to then work on it, there is now this caked in wild mono reverb that is not cool, right? And
that's way later.
Well, that's guidance.
No, I get it. I get it that it is, but that I know that's way later from where you're at in the conversation, but that is happening on the regular now too. Yeah. So to just stay in Gerhardt's point of view, this is a post childlike play. Now we're entering the I want to do this. How do we transition? That's why I don't want to get lost. Yeah, I love the access. I think that's fantastic.
Actually, we define the front lines as being even further back into the play space.
I don't know if that's where he's at.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think he is in that space where you're talking about the transition. And we don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, I think we've done our best on that, though.
Well, I think if you look at what you and Matt are doing, and what we're doing here, you and Matt are on the practical side and the poppier side of making records, and we're on the sort of more spiritual and philosophical side of making records and trying to feed those two needs. That's kind of our input right now.
I'm actually wondering what the benefit would be of on that platform, because I try to steer it a little bit more the way we are about things, and I'm wondering how, like, if going a bit more poppy and practical is actually is better for that format. Actually, just hearing you talk about it that way,
I think you guys do great with it. I think you're a good foil for each other, and
but it's even that's advanced for who Gerhardt's talking.
That's what, exactly.
We're talking about like, I can imagine a YouTube channel that's like very like, what is gain staging and what is
But why not? Why wouldn't I or someone alike do it? Right? Like, why wouldn't a working engineer do it versus someone that thinks they understand it, that's never put out a record that has done done well in the world?
Yeah, I'm not saying like our voices couldn't be involved or whatever.
I've just never thought about doing it, and now I'm like, oh, well, maybe.
I have a lot of video production experience from today. So from my Instagram post, so I've actually had I have years of experience.
I'm just wondering what using the small yet hopefully somewhat effective platforms that exist between the us and Matt and I, if there's a poppy practical way of doing some geeky technique conversations, and keeping it fun and zippy and not I don't know. There's probably a way, is all I'm saying.
That's all. Again, we got into this in the desert. It became really clear. We actually have drawings of it, but this informational ecosystem to serve the entire community, and that means the most senior professionals in town or wherever they are in the world, the more junior, the assistants, the interns, those that are being onboarded, out in the world and the kids playing. I mean, all of that represents the field and the future of it. Yeah. And I think there's different kinds of content, different kinds of media, different kinds of ideas and frameworks that are appropriate for various stages.
Yeah.
And as far as things being codified, I think things can be codified to a point. Like we can write things down. There are, gain staging is a thing. There are numbers involved. We can define things. We can make rules that can be broken, all those things.
Yeah.
But there is we can codify things, but there is no replacing the day in and day out lifestyle. Like what happens when you're in the room having lunch, all the subtle things that happen in between the actual transmitting of information from one mind to another. Like there's so much more to it.
I'm reminded of that quote from Shane Parrish way back on the Knowledge Project when someone asked, it was either him or the guest, and it was like, how do you enable creativity? It was like, I have no fucking idea. I know 100 ways to crush it, to kill it, but it's like a plant. You don't make it grow, you let it grow, you help it grow, you encourage it, you give it the things it needs.
Like an institution.
But you also just kind of pull back. And I had a list earlier with the last question, what can we teach? We can teach resilience, we can teach discipline, we can teach rules and, accepted truths. We can teach you comfort in breaking rules, confidence, things like that. And then there's the stuff you can't teach, which is you can't make the plant grow. You can't make someone, you can't teach someone to love music. You create the space where they fall in love with music.
Yeah, the opportunity.
You can't teach someone how to play.
Which one thing that if I could do for Sam Harris would be to help him fall in love with music.
Yeah, he might.
To sit him down in maybe he hasn't heard the right record in the right room. He might be one record away.
Yeah.
Just one more psilocybin trip with the right record. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, our next one, I'm seeing on the thread that it's an email. So do you want to read it, Michael?
You've got to hear it.
No, I'll let Michael read it because he's got it.
Oh, he's got it?
No? You don't want to read it?
Graham's handing it to you.
It's long, man.
Okay. Yeah. Is it? But you've read it. Is it? Should we read it? Can we read all of it?
It's great, man. I love this.
Yeah, it's not so long. Okay.
But there's a cherry at the end. It's not on top this time. It's at the bottom. You have to play the audio. Right.
There's audio too.
It's
okay,
incredible.
I will.
This is great.
I'll let Graham set that up for me. So it's from. Say the name for me, Michael. Joao. Joao Martin. Sorry, Joao, if I get that wrong. Okay, here we go. Hello, guys. My iPhone microphone is broken, so it's not working at the moment, but I really want to be part of today's AMA episode, so I decided to write. I hope that's okay. This is a critical moment of my life, so I have a lot on my mind. I'm Portuguese, 21 years old, and 3 years ago I moved to London to study music recording and production. I felt the need to come here to London to experience a different culture, challenge myself emotionally and academically, and connect with all sorts of people. And unlike Portugal, London is one of the biggest centers of the music industry, so it's a win-win situation. I just graduated a few days ago and I feel a bit lost in my life. I know that I'm still young and I have a lot of time to achieve my goals, but I feel like I'm missing something. I hunger for something more. I know exactly what I want to do, mixing. I'm hungry for a job and I want to move to Los Angeles to be around the big guys. John, you're my favorite. And while the competition is fierce. At 21, we are all young, dumb, and have little experience and make mistakes. I know that is normal, but I don't want to mess this up. I want to be on the right path, but who knows what the right path is? Does the right path even exist? I'm not afraid of failure, but I can't help but think about it all the time. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any advice? Thanks, guys. These last 43 weeks have been amazing. You have no idea how much you gave me. I'm so grateful for all four of you and this beautiful community you've built. I make sure never to miss a live stream, and as it starts at 3 a.m. here in London on Wednesdays, I go to bed in the morning, but I feel happy, fulfilled, and complete. My life has been improved because of you, and so I'm starting to tear up.
I know, man. Come on.
And so I appreciate each and every one of you. Fuck, man, you're killing me. A big, warm thank you. You guys are the real Fantastic Four.
Oi.
That is crazy. And Joao's handle is Sir Joao Martins on Instagram. So hit him up. P.S. You're all so funny that I couldn't help but make a quick compilation of some of the many funny moments. I thought I would share it with you. This has been quite a journey.
Get the hell out of here.
Okay.
Fan art?
Dude, this is what I've been asking for weeks. If anyone's listening, please make more of these. Please.
I'm scared.
The Rory
Mega Mix.
Terrified.
The Rory Mega Mix.
Yeah, we need the Rory metaphor match.
This is the end of my art life here.
Rory Meta Mix.
This is how you teach a kid not to play.
Meta roars.
My name is Rory O'Flaherty, and I'm sitting here in the gift shop with my 3 friends, Michael Morgan, Spider, and John Castelli.
Kind of going in like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
What should we do?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Pretend that you're dead. That was the song. Pretend that you're dead. Grunge.
Yeah.
It's a girl band, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Pretend that we're dead.
Yeah.
Look at all the cultural impact they've had because of that. Now there's a whole syndrome.
Yeah, see, there was a whole Lollapalooza. There was a whole thing that happened.
Hold on.
Okay, Siri, play the meters. So, yeah, which interestingly was like, and just when it peaks, someone pushes the fader on the 1.6K. Like right across the
space echo, 120% feedback.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, all right.
There's not necessarily a vision per se, but there's elements that could allude to it. It's a
blooper reel?
Nothing, basically, guys. That's what we're trying to. I don't really care if I get to Everest. What is Everest? You can't even really get there. There's a lot of dead people up there. It's covered in shit. Like, I'm not trying to get there anymore. I don't even know what I was thinking.
Empty gas cans.
It's into that explaining the joke thing.
Yes. Ellie explained to Mirabel yesterday that we don't explain jokes.
Wow.
We just don't do it.
9 years old.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like if they don't get it, they don't get it.
Yeah.
You know. It's like it doesn't get better when you explain it. Someone is exchanging a barrel of salt for a loud record.
Hey guys, found takeaways for me on what it means to commit and align. Moment of silence. You can't talk in the moment of silence, and it's not a moment of silence. That's what I do. I make jokes. People love me for it. They write in. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. The amount of fan mail I get for jokes like this, you wouldn't believe it.
It's all from people who are hurting, who are afraid of the silence. They're just
look.
Oh my God.
Our joke.
So
Spider has. We won't be getting letters about that joke.
That I pulled on the headphone cord.
Okay.
Did you? Is it back?
Yeah.
Yeah. We lost our headphones for a second, and I thought I was having a stroke. Oh shit!
This is it.
But yeah, this is the moment. You went out
This
on
is
my.
what a way to go out.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking like, we'd love for you to join us. So please do. And we look forward to talking with you.
Oh, that's nice.
That's our new intro episode.
Oh, come on, man. That's so nice.
That took a lot of care to put together, and thank you. That's very funny. It sort of reminded me of like what would happen if the 4 of us were killed in a car crash together on our way out to Malibu. They would play that on the news.
Oh my God.
4 promising young podcasters.
Yeah.
And then they'll be on to like selling, Depends or whatever. It's like, okay, guys.
What was the what was the ending after all of that? What was the ending like the actual question after stating the feeling lost after the graduation and the hunger for more? What was the question?
Coming to LA, like wanting to get on the path.
Well, yeah, I want to be on the right path, but who knows what the right path is? Does the right path even exist? I'm not afraid.
This is a really
failure.
interesting. Yeah, this is a really interesting thing that David Snowden was talking about on the Stoa YouTube channel. They had 4 episodes with him, and his thing is like he's not really into goals; he's into direction. His thing about goals is that if you have especially a far off goal, it can blind you to the opportunities at hand. So it limits your ability to adapt to changing circumstance. And he's way bigger on this idea of getting in a direction. Like, I want to be better at a thing, or I want to move toward this. Not so much about the brass ring, which I thought was an interesting framework. And he's got all kinds of deep level, complex systems, scientific reasons for putting his emphasis elsewhere. But I think if we look at where we are and think about the things we want to improve, then we have like achievable steps, rather than a huge gulf between where you are and where you want to be, which intuitively feels a lot more useful, manageable, more in line with the way motivation works. So again, this is all like this week. This is like fresh thinking, and I haven't really developed it. But I think the knowing what you want to improve is really important. Like knowing, having the right dimensions to consider, and that's part of the orientation thing. It's like, what do we care about as engineers? Like, young 21, listening to records, lots of records, all kinds of records. How do you and listening, trying to get your listening environment, headphones, speakers, room, trying to get access to, putting the energy there, like ear training, cultural assimilation, like assimilating music from all over the world and all kinds of time, finding people who share the loves that you share. Yeah, I don't know. Guys, jump in.
That's good.
You touched on something I was thinking over the last two answers as we were wrapping them up and sort of throughout, which is, I think a lot of people want to know the destination, and the destination is made up of so many different steps. Like each one of our destinations thus far, wherever we are in this moment, we're a series of steps and turns and redirects, and I think asking a question like, am I on the right path, or is this the right place to be, or am I headed in the right direction? If it's what you want to do and you think it's a promising endeavor and you've looked into the odds and you're okay with all of the things, like directionally, great, pursue it. Now you guys might say that's dumb, I don't know, but pursue the thing that you're after. The next question is around like, are you asking whether you're in the right place or whether the next step you're about to take is correct? And are you just continually in a state of like, is this next step I'm about to take correct, to the point that you're not taking any steps? Because what I got from the email felt like there was a lot of stress, a lot of weight, a lot of like
hesitation and
doubt.
doubt.
And doubt.
Yeah.
And so that can happen often. And so, I don't want to advise exactly on where you should go because I don't know all the circumstances in your life. But if you're interested in moving to LA and you can, and you have the means to do it and survive for a while you get this thing off the ground, and you are aware of what it takes and are willing to commit to the steps to get you to a place where you can achieve whatever it is you're after, then definitely. But then there's so many other questions we brought up tonight. Do you know what you're after? Do you have a sense of the next step? Are you confident in that? There was a quote before I thought of, which is strong beliefs held loosely. Like, do you believe what you believe, but are you willing to adapt? Not all the time, every second, but like at the rate in which progress might be needed. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of vague, but there's some.
It is vague. I
haven't seen, like, I would wonder if there's a model in everyone's life of the journey and not the destination, right? Like we see accolades and we see successes or failures of parents or friends' parents or teachers or people that we look up to, we see the thing that either worked out or didn't work out, but we don't get to view the entire journey that it took. So there's no way to necessarily see the model firsthand. We can only see ourselves in that position. So it makes sense that it would be difficult to follow it regularly and witness it. That's like where mindfulness comes into play, where you're actually like you're forced to sit with your thoughts and you know, and do what you will with them, but they're in full vision if you sit enough with them. And I wonder if there's more of that practice that can come into play to be more available to the journey and see the steps day by day, hour by hour, week by week, whatever timetable that is appropriate for whatever experience that we're discussing. Like when you're thinking about career, it's definitely not going to be day by day or hour by hour. That would be annoying. But do constant check-ins with your peers, with yourself, with people that you admire. I've never seen the model shown to me that of the journey. It's always been the Grammy or the billion streams or it was 1 million views on YouTube. And then there's always these metrics just change and get so blown out of proportion. And they matter to a degree because, for someone like me, when I'm sitting back and if I'm answering the question of like why I do what I do, and I love working on records that connect with as many people as possible. So of course I want to work on records that have 1 billion listens. But it's not for that necessarily. It's for the connection aspect of it. So what's the journey to get there? There's no journey to get to 1 billion streams. That's luck. So why set out for that to be the goal? Because it's there's no one way to it that you can direct yourself and align yourself. It's like lily pads in a pond. They're not really in a line. You got to like jump from one to the other, and some of them are going to sink and some of them are going to float. But you're a frog, so you can swim. It's like not that devastating if you fall into the pond. You're going to get out and find it. It's not like Indiana Jones when the ball's behind you and like coming at you. It's not that dire. I mean, finances can be crippling to some degree. I know that's I'm being vague to a degree, but when it comes to basic needs met, making music, like I bet you can find your way to do that. Most people can find their way to do that with a side hustle or whatever it is. I just think paying attention to the journey is the key, and I'm living it now. Like I've just flipped the script on my life at 35 to recognize the journey like 2 years ago, if not like 2 weeks ago, and I'm constantly reminding myself of it. Let's use today for example. I got a FedEx package today. 2 years later, I got my Grammy nomination medal, like the thing that they give you at the party if you go to the party. And I didn't want to go to the party, so I didn't get the thing. And 2 years later, so I'm like, this is cool. And it sat out on my island in my kitchen for a good 4 hours. And then when it was time to do the podcast, I put that in a drawer and I'm never going to look at it again because I'm worrying about what song is coming tomorrow, what meal I'm going to eat tonight with the guys, what this week looks like. It's just more important things, but it's cool that came, right? But if I thought that that's the only reason I did it, and then I got the medal and I looked at it and I was like, this means nothing to me, then I would have failed. Like that's way too much weight and pressure to put on one destination. So I think what Michael's bringing up is, and what I forgot the guy that you're quoting and referencing,
David Snowden.
Like this is as much of a key to how to live a good life that I could relate to, because
define the direction.
Yeah.
Like I want to help records be all they can be.
Yeah.
Like what is the direction we're talking about? I want to be better able to help records be what they can be.
Yeah.
And if you notice that the more energy you put in, the more fulfilled the records become, then you have that sense of mastery. And the people you meet in the pursuit of doing that new opportunities could emerge, and you might end up making movie like a score mixer. Or, it's the thing that struck me about Jal's message is, I just graduated and I'm lost. Those two things should not be together. What happened at school that you're lost? What did school not provide? Or am I confused about what school's for? Right? Maybe school's not for that, and I'm mistaken. But in my mind, school is the place where you develop your direction. And so being lost at the end of it, to me, is concerning. And I don't have
probably very typical.
Well, yeah, it may be typical, and I don't have any. I have no interest in placing blame anywhere. But to me, that puts a fine point on what we see all the time. Is people who are lost, who in private will reveal it, but you would never know otherwise. Like people seeking to create the impression they're not, so that they actually don't attract the guidance, support, help, friendship.
And they just launch into mimicking someone else who is successful, in air quotes, and also lost, because we were with them last week or 2 weeks ago.
A lot of blind leading the blind in our field.
I think, I love that Joao is listening right now in London at 3 a.m.
That's insane.
Incredible.
I almost feel I have mixed feelings about it, because
I know you should be sleeping.
Is so essential.
Mixed feelings.
Go hard, bro.
You're 21. You're 21.
No,
you'll
go to
recover.
sleep.
You'll recover.
Listen Monday. Sorry, Geoff, but I think you should listen Monday. Yeah, it's my.
No,
I'm
you should
concerned.
stay listening, because I'm about to talk. I think that in the spirit of what we said earlier, it's interesting that Spider's listening this week with Snowden. What Michael said, what you said earlier on Matt Rad, which is a theme that we've touched on here a lot, which is journey, not destination. What is the quality of your day? I think the fact that these questions are being asked now after school is healthy. It points to a self-awareness. I think a lot of people just sort of, get a ticket or jump on a train and go and start copying other people in an unhealthy way. So I think it's a really good question to ask. I would first ascertain, before I went to help in any way, is your love of music, is your sense of play, based on what we said earlier, is it intact, is it whole, is it deep, is it complete, is it grounded and rooted and strong? And then I'd come and fuck you up with some hard questions, like, why do you want to come to LA to make records? Why, really? Why? What's it for? Is it to be seen to make great records? Is it, as Spider says, to help artists? Is it to bring something that you've seen in a room to 1 million people, something you're in touch with?
Yeah, sharing.
What's the point? Is it that you just really get a kick out of being in a room with gear, listening? Like what talking to Brian last week, he really loves being in a room, just chiseling away at the music, working on it, nuancing it. It's a happy place for him. Other people, it's a grind, but they love the adulation, or they love something about it. So
the key is being as honest as possible about what motivates you emotionally.
Exactly. That's what
as best you can understand.
That's what I'm driving at. Yeah. And
harnessing it.
Yeah. And really harnessing it, and really understanding why you're about this thing. And then at the other side, really understanding what LA or anywhere you might want to go is or isn't. We've said on here,
that's not easy.
Not easy at all. I had no grasp on what this place was. Even 2 or 3 years into being here.
Yeah, that's what I mean about the importance of having institutions here that support this community, so that people do have some kind of expectations that are met when they come here. That there are people that they can mingle with, and a culture here that is known outside of the city, that when you get here, it's
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
this is true, but we don't have it right now.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think that question of why do you want to come is the most important one. What are you
To be around the big boys where the competition is intense. I mean, this is what he believes. What Zhao believes.
Yeah.
It's, he wants to be in the furnace, and I like that.
Yeah.
Like, I like
There's
that.
a lot to be gained from that. I mean, there's a whole bunch that we all collectively know that we couldn't have known without getting here.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yeah.
Can't learn it in my hometown. I know that.
No.
Nor yours. So,
Yeah.
you too, Graham. So it's like, there's definite value to coming here, but you want to know why. You want to really be sure of what you're about, Not sure that it will work out or sure.
No, you need to have a version and you will update.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to define you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Again, identity is a thing to hold loosely.
Yes.
Yeah. But be engaged in that know thyself practice, in the practice of knowing oneself, yourself.
Yeah. Well, you've already gone from
Yeah, the leap to London is big.
From home to London is big, and getting through studies is a big deal. And being in another culture there already, that's a huge leap. Coming to LA is expensive and hard, and it may be that camping out in London for a few years would serve you better.
I don't know. London's fucking expensive.
It's expensive, and it's a small scene relative.
Yeah.
It's not in the best of shape.
Yeah.
The people we know there are all coming here.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's your answer. So
yeah. Well, yeah.
We don't know enough about you, Joe. Really.
Yeah.
We're just talking here, but sorry you feel lost.
Yeah. I see it as a positive, honestly. I see it as a guy who's in touch with the questions, with the real questions.
He knows he's lost.
Yes.
And is willing to admit it. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I see that as a real positive.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for that.
Now you can go to sleep.
The mega mix.
We got one more? We've got two more, do we? Two more. I can never know how to say Paul's second name, even though we DM all the time. Paul Cornoyer. Cornoyer? Cornoyer?
I would guess Cornier.
Cornier. You might even say it in the message. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, it's Paul Cornway from Edmonton, Alberta. The thing that's been on my mind a lot lately is process and structure and how I can use those things to better organize my life and create more room for freedom, creatively speaking. So using process or structure to free oneself from the endless demands of small decision-making processes to allow myself to be more creative and enjoy the work I'm doing on a more consistent basis. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Take care.
Sounds like he's got it.
No, I was just going to say I see no merit in this question.
I mean,
he's completely lost. Yeah, geez, Michael got a boner right then. As soon as the question aired. No, it's great. And
exactly is my answer.
You said process to enable enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. Freedom from the small decisions. I like that.
Yeah, I think there's a
phrasing.
function of creative practices or creative processes that'll get. There's process that can get things out of the way that allow you the space and time to be creating things. Or you could even say processes that allow you the space and time to diverge. But I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a process because there isn't a process to diverge. That's play. I mean, you can take that as open-ended, divergent as possible if you want to just run around the forest and explore things, like the process of being creative versus the process leading up to having the space to be creative aren't the same things. And I don't think they require the same tools. A lot of what I've been writing about, interviewing people about, thinking about, has been about the creative tools, these sort of intangible, not tools, intangible concepts that exist during the creative process, during the creative work, as opposed to process that would enable you the free time scheduling things, calendars, how your email is inbox zero, what app to use, whatever, all the things that kind of support you to live a life that isn't fully chaotic. But
stuff that's routine and repeated so that you're not making small decisions.
Right.
So that your mind, you can do things sort of mindlessly in a routine so that your mind can, your awareness is open to higher order aspects of a thing.
But that's the thing. What I want to mention and caution is that it has the potential to allow your mind room to process higher order things. But it isn't a guarantee that by having a calendar, you will do that with your free time.
Right.
Because there's plenty of free time that I've spent playing Call of Duty, as we know on this show. I've talked, and I have calendars, and so it's not a one-to-one thing. I think something that, especially from us working together with PMC, I realized that I have so many processes that allow me to be creative, or that bring me to the moment of creativity, I should say. But then there's the creative process itself.
Yes.
And because it's called a creative process, the creativity is the process. What you do inside of it is not like the same as setting up a calendar. A calendar is
there's not one process happening at any given moment. There can be multiple processes. But I'm thinking about, let's zoom in on mixing, which I know Paul is doing up there in British Columbia, right?
Edmonton. Yeah, BC,
and so you're mixing and you're like, oh, that one background vocal. And the session is such that it's hard to find. And you're looking around for the thing, and then you're losing the emotional connection and the higher order stuff. Now you're in a sort of lower level, like, where the fuck is this track? But if you had a process in prep where everything's always colored and the harmonies are always sort of laid out in a way it doesn't require your sort of creativity to find the thing, to then do the creative thing to it. Maybe that sort of reveals the world that Paul may be in. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Anything to say to that?
It ties into, I think, as well, what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with what's a new record, the J. Cole record, and we were and maybe some other mutual friends, Michael, where we were talking about the work not being enough. So what we're kind of, we're talking about enjoyment. Paul mentioned enjoyment on his thing, the structure, the practice and process, and the sort of rigor of that to allow the higher order thinking, as Spider says. But you do also need, which is I think what you're driving at, Michael, is you do need inspiration in your life when you create that pocket where you don't have to show up for a meeting and you don't have another thing to do. There isn't an email to answer. It's just a pocket for generation or creativity. You want your mind to be a fertile place. Ideally you'd like to be rested, you'd like to be maybe fed, you'd like to have the right amount of caffeine in your body, but you'd also like to have some ideas that fired you up that week. Some space or an encouragement that came from a collaborator, or even for me, it's like, you give me a blank sheet of paper in Word, a blank screen, it's like, fuck, it's a pain in my ass. Give me any kind of dog shit and a direction to go in, and I'll start hacking at it. Like, I'll start making it better towards the direction. I just I'm not good at the originator. And other people have the opposite. So it's like, I obviously need to work with people who have that who have trouble finishing or whatever. And I have trouble with the blank page. So just the need for inspiration is what I'm getting for you, Michael, for that there's more to it than just leaving the creative space or the there's more to doing good work than just the process. There's got to be inside in it. There's got to be spark or intent or
those are those intangibles that I was getting at. That's what I've been trying to map recently. That's what the project of the book is trying to map those things and not create a process out of them, but honestly just show the polarity of so many different attributes of creativity, and allowing people to navigate between them. Whether it's like something like limits. Do I believe you should always have limits? No. Do I believe that you should never have limits? No. Like, but sometimes I feel very strongly about one of those things. You know what I mean? And sitting down at a blank page, what a great time to have a limit for someone like yourself who says, well, it's hard for me to know what to do. Well, why don't you give yourself a creative limit? I'm going to make a letter form using the color black, right? Like, or whatever. Like, or
one, just one paragraph, just write one paragraph.
Yeah, exactly.
Today.
So
that's all.
Right. And then other times it's like, dude, no limits, go nuts,
Yes.
So I don't think there's like a structured process to like getting from point A to point B within a piece of creative work. There are like very like high level things you can find charts about, like in terms of the design process. There's like these high level things, but there's so much underlying that you can't just codify and say it's just one way every time, whether it's mixing or designing, whatever. It's more about knowing this sort of and building and curating a set of attributes that have poles, point A and point B, and knowing how to navigate those intuitively as you go. And then there's more logistical processes that you would use around that to carve out that space. That's kind of how I've been seeing it lately. Coming from a guy who went on a tear about process while I was in a Texas hotel room post shitty barbecue. And that's honestly, it's how the book started. So that's why I'm, thinking about it a lot. Is it started because I thought maybe there is like just an answer. And my answer is that there isn't an answer, but or there isn't one singular answer, but it's really about how you calibrate. And those who EQ know that is a thing,
What you could do in your book is say, the answer is on page 322 and then make it so there's no 322. It just goes to 323.
What a dick.
Before we jump to the next question, Graham texted this on our on-air thread for Joao, and I thought it was good, worth mentioning. School is also the place to hopefully build meaningful relationships, to do things with your peers you trust after you graduate. I think that's very important. And along the lines of find your four or your cohort or whatever. And sort of on the meaning piece, Graham says, I think working with peers is a huge way to feel found and not lost. And I like that sentiment a lot. That being able to show up and say what you said is important. Like, you're not sure. You don't know if this is the right move. You're nervous. You're not alone in that. And finding people around you who feel the same and teasing out the why with those people and maintaining those relationships as you guys level up together. I think that's all really positive. So thank you, Graham, for bringing that point to the table, because I think it's important. We got one more? Great. Emmanuel Robin, did I get that right? Yeah. Here we go. Last one, dudes.
Something I had on my mind recently is thinking about COVID and the lockdown and the pandemic in general. How, I'm 18, so I'm thinking like, how will it affect me in, social settings going forward, and will I still be able to go on the path that I have to go on? That's what I've been thinking about lately.
18. The path he needs to go on. Do we know what the path is?
I think I'd ask someone else. I don't know anything about the path. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
are we talking engineer, artist, producer?
We would have to.
Do we know?
We don't know. Maybe we can find out on Instagram if we know the handle. But what we do know, it's interesting because my intuition with that question is no. It's a long life. But of course, life looks a lot longer from 45 than it does from 18. So you think about, well, the pandemic has been 5% of his entire life, but it's been 33% of his like any kind of self-aware life at all, like from 15 to 18, where you have like any idea of what's going on in the world, like a sense of stuff outside of the home, or so it's a huge slice of I've forgotten his name, sorry, Emmanuel's life. So what I would say is, because we don't really have a sense of your journey, and we've agreed there's no destination, but we don't have a sense of the journey. I think it would be very likely feel bigger for you than it will be in your life, and that's understandable. And that's not to diminish how big it has been for some people who are 45 or 65 or 75. It's been a terrible time. But I think if you're young and you're reasonably healthy, and things keep going the way they are, and we get a handle on this thing, it will be history soon, and we'll all be wiser for it. But I think it will.
That's optimistic. I hope so.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean we as in the five of us plus Emmanuel.
Yeah.
So yeah. Easy tiger there. With the
start small. Yeah.
Spider checked me on my rampant optimism. Who are you and what have you done with Rory? But so
I think it's a very good point, because at that age you're at a very adaptable. You're a very adaptable point in your life. I worry more about like kids who went through this in middle school. Those sort of early, like when the early social,
yes,
as the social incentives emerge.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about kids who didn't get like that high volume, high context interaction with other people at that pivotal age.
Yes.
But yeah, Roy, I like your
Same.
I like your outlook on this. I think like 18 today, there's no doubt the world will be different because of the pandemic. But you're entering that as an 18-year-old. That's kind of, I think there are probably advantages that we'll understand later about what it means to be this age at this time.
Wow, the optimism pouring out as we go into this last question. That's so interesting.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I share it.
Yeah.
Just,
We were instructed by management to be optimistic on our shows.
Jeremiah,
I mean, it's a customer service call. Suddenly,
I don't have any.
Get it together.
I don't have any thoughts on this, except for if you've reoriented priorities and learned that you're not as social of a creature as you might have thought you had been, and you learn that through a pandemic, then find another way to connect with people. And if you want to go out and be social again, be safe, use hand sanitizer, and go meet people and share meals and drinks with humans, because that's what humans are good at. So don't be put off by the fact that there was a pandemic, because there's going to be another one. We should, live according to the way we know humans should live, which is connecting and being social creatures. So go out and meet people and connect and go the path that presents itself to you. And that's the only thing you can do, because you can't go any other way.
We need each other.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, it's not a lot of information to go on, so I can only project. But I think like the information diet is a huge deal. Like sort of being glued to the news and glued to the pandemic every day, the updates. It's not relevant. It's not helpful. Check in as necessary, but be mindful of the amount of time one spends what it is we spend our time taking in, all of it. I mean, not just the news, but what is the quality and character of the influences we allow into our lives. What does it mean to be discerning about what we allow ourselves to be influenced by? And for me, I don't want a lot of cable news. I don't need it. It's not interesting. When I do venture into the news page of the YouTube app on the Apple TV, I come away feeling worse. There's not anything there I can do anything about. The most recent road rage incident on the 101, it's not relevant to me. It does nothing but agitate me, right? In the physical sense, in the biological sense. And do I need more agitation? I don't think so. So, yeah, be mindful of what you're absorbing, what you're consuming. And that goes for people too. You know, the people in our lives. I know at 18, looking back, I wish I made other choices about who I spend time with and who I allowed to influence me and who I hitched my wagon to and all that sort of thing. And yeah, without knowing more.
That's, yeah.
You know,
that's where I was going to go as well, is that, you know, again, in the, you know, we have the time thing that I alluded to. That's a big segment of an adult life, a young adult life, this time period. But also, you know, I imagine if the pandemic came when I was 18, I would have gone home from college, 50 miles, and moved back in with my parents full time. And I would have played guitar and listened to My Bloody Valentine and This Mortal Coil on headphones for a year. And
is that what you would do if you could push the button?
No, but that's what I would. I'm looking at my history. If the pandemic had happened then, this was pre. I hadn't got my first cell phone then.
It sounds kind of great
when I was 19 or 20. But I was getting at the same thing that you did, which is I would have been free. The news would have come at 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Now, the amount of people who died in India today is just like beamed into our eyeballs. All you know,
unless you turn your notifications off, it's
exactly
coming in your face.
It's that choice, and it feels, in a way, it can feel irresponsible to turn off that information, but it isn't. It's self-care, and you made the same point better, really. But I guess just that. It seems like now having all this information come at us is the only way. And it isn't, because if you look at our life, and you and I, Spider, and put a pandemic in at the 18-year slot, we would have had a different experience of it. And we think it would have been healthier because we would have been less burdened by this constant onslaught of information.
Yeah,
because
I was in a band. I mean, it would have been band practice, and I mean,
we lived pre-internet, so the point is that we have an insight into another way, and you can have some of that. You can have some of that anytime you want. One can have some of that.
So when I was in New York for 9/11, right, and that was, I was 20. What? That's 2001. 25. So 25, 26. So that was the first time when I felt like I needed to watch the news, right? I was in the city, in the studio, up on the 17th floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan. Just CNN all the time. Like, record making stopped for a minute. And it was, if I'm not watching CNN, if I'm watching CNN, I'm less nervous than if I'm not. So it was like this, let me do something to deal with the tension and the worry. You know, at the time it wasn't just, you know, looking back, it was like, okay, this, you know, the towers came down, but at the time it was like, well, what else is coming? What else is coming? There were bomb scares at all over
everywhere,
like,
every bridge,
Empire,
every
Empire
yeah.
State, like which was 34th Street. I was on 54th Street, 20 blocks. You know, it was
Subway.
really
There was a bunch
uncertain.
of scares.
Yeah, and there were like fighter jets overhead and black SUVs, and you know, with lights and just screaming up and down the north-south avenues, and it was really a one of those times. And like, so the news became a way of dealing with the trauma and the stress of it. And it wasn't, that was cable news. That wasn't the news at 6 and the news at 11. That wasn't like broadcast TV, which, you know, what it was like when I was 5 in the 80s, right? So I think like the impulse to go there, even during the pandemic and the riots up the street, it was go to the live stream from the helicopter, like streaming live on YouTube from like KTLA or whatever, and just to know that like your building's not going to burn down. But then what? Like, because the content is designed in a way to keep your attention and to keep you watching the next thing. So how do you stay informed in a way that's relevant, right, without falling down into the trap of it running your life?
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And again, we don't know that this or any of this is happening to the questioner.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, I'm relating to the intensity of a kind of world-shattering event, or like a kind of collective trauma.
Yeah.
So I was 25, 26 when it happened, when 9/11 happened, you know, outside the window. I mean, I could actually see it with my eyes. And that situation was ongoing for weeks there. And it definitely changed me. And I'd be asking the same questions.
Yes.
Like a post 9/11 world, like, you know, we're not talking about it all the time anymore. And maybe that says something about how we'll think about the pandemic in the future.
You put your finger on something, which is to say, when I think in summary, my response was, you'll be okay. This won't be as big as it seems now. But what you're saying is it's important to note, like, to understand why it seems so big right now, and that it, you know, will have some effect on you, and it, you know, so it's not to diminish his experience of it. I guess
No, not to dismiss it at all.
Yeah,
it's serious.
Yeah, it's been a serious business,
and it's changed the world.
And people have lost family members. I mean, you know, friends, and you know, it's Graham had a good point to make on the question, another way of looking at it, or maybe the right way. Do you want to jump in on it, Michael? Did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what all of you guys are saying. I also wanted to validate everything that Emmanuel had wrote in. I mean, so Graham wrote, where is that? What are you guys thinking about how your social skills have been affected by the pandemic? I think that is what he wants to hear from you guys. Or has the pandemic affected your social life? And if so, how? Another take on that. I mean, I think we've been touching on the affect of trauma or traumatic experiences on people, that it can either be something you look too deeply into or something that deeply affects you. Again, 2 poles, you can land somewhere on that. But in terms of like the social implications that one would have from this experience, whether it was very traumatic or not, or just the fact that you haven't been around people for a while, it depends. You know, for me, I am extroverted, and I actually don't even like labeling myself that, to be honest, but I like talking to people a lot. So I've been finding ways to do that via the internet, telephone, and FaceTime, and even, you know, traveling cross country very, very safely and cautiously the first time to be with family. So I try to, having dealt with other trauma in the past, try to make the good parts of life still exist and maximize that. And I think, we don't know how long we have left in this. So, well, in this life, but I meant in the pandemic. But either. So, try to find areas that you did enjoy of the past and you are enjoying now even, and maximize those. In terms of like how it might change once we all get out of this, I've been very optimistic about it. I've been joking with my cousin who's younger than me. I heard this term hot girl summer. I don't know what it means really, other than the fact that people are out and like experiencing summer for the first time, and people have been inside all the time, and everyone wants to be social. If it's safe, if you're vaccinated, etc. I didn't make that term, so please don't blame me for this. But I
Cancelled.
Yeah. Someone had to say it. But yeah, this concept is interesting because people want to socialize more than before. So it's an opportunity as well. And I think an opportunity could present itself. Yeah, maybe it's a little weird at first. It's going to be awkward.
Maybe we get out of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we get out of practice. Our thoughts, tend to go in circles when we're isolated, and then your brain changes. And getting back into that social way of being can be, there's a little curve there.
Definitely.
But what I think is cool, like when Michael's talking about opportunity, like one thing I notice, the pandemic has offered an opportunity for me to be more outwardly caring toward people without it seeming weird. You can sort of really express your concern and care for people that you may not even know that well, because we have this sort of common problem. And so it's made it easier to go to a deeper place with people, which I think is a really interesting opportunity I hadn't considered before.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Today on the live, I was crediting Mike Kleba for teaching me that and demonstrating that to me. He was one of my first clients at Status early into the pandemic. And he was, after every call we had, was just like acknowledging these small things about me that I had done that had really helped him, or that he noticed that he thought was promising. And I was like, you're paying me, like, damn, this is awesome. Like
specific praise.
Yes,
specificity
very,
of praise.
And like, it was really embarrassing for me at first, and like, because it was so new, it was uncomfortable, I should say. But then at the start of this live, and for many of the lives, I've been doing that for people, and I've been practicing that a lot. I think it's so rare to see, and I think it feels so good when you're finally able to accept that if you just keep showering people that you care about, that are doing good things in that kind of honest praise, and genuine praise, not just like doing it for some social hierarchy reasons, but genuinely, it really goes a long way. I don't want to say it'll change the world or anything, but it goes a long way.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah, I like that.
When in doubt, compliment something that you like about someone you like. Like, that's it. That's the secret, guys. Actually, I'm sorry, that is the secret to life. I just figured it out.
That's on page 322.
Yeah. It's a nice gift to give if you can, if it's authentic and
the gift for you is it requires you to figure that out. And that's the social nature of it, is that to really know and to really be able to compliment a specific thing about someone, you have to really observe and care about that specific someone,
and be open to receive it and all of that. Yeah.
And then finding the words and the whole thing. So it benefits both.
Yes,
I like that.
Thanks for that, Spider. That was good.
Cool.
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
John is tired.
I'm so tired.
End
it's
of day. Yes.
It's 12:30 on Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. I go from one island to the other.
From Long Island to
Rhode Island's not even an island.
Long Island to Rhode Island.
To Rhode
Long
Island.
Island is not an island?
Rhode Island.
Rhode
isn't
Island
even
is
an
not.
island.
Really?
It's not an island.
Just fucking with us?
Yeah. I think we're going to Boston tomorrow.
It's just
It's
part of
also
the
not
country.
an island.
Boston Island.
This is going to be a long episode if we keep going.
Yeah.
What about
I'm also going
Canada?
Portland, also not an island.
I have to say that I look forward to these episodes. I think the most so far.
Yeah, it's a great
As
format.
we experiment with our monthly format, that's switching from interview, solo episode, workshop to AMA. The AMAs have been my favorite. I really like getting the real-time feedback of what people are feeling, and it challenges us to even understand what we're feeling. Or I'll speak for myself, for me, because I'm a bit head down right now. I'm in a busy phase of mixed life. I go through bouts of busy and then some downtime, and it just felt good to be questioned back to as well, and challenged here tonight. So thanks everybody for that.
Yeah, I get that sense of community. It really makes me want to have everybody in a room.
Yeah.
You know,
They have fascinating brains, these people
I
who
know.
listen. Lots of stuff going on in there. It's really gratifying to hear it and exciting. And it's today. Oh, shout out before we forget. Edsel Holden is 30 today.
Oh.
He won't be listening live because I hope he's celebrating.
yeah.
He should be having a beer and a slice of pizza with his lady or something.
Man, pizza.
At least.
Whatever they're doing, I hope they're doing it in style. So big up to Edsel, who I have great conversations with. But this week he sent me a fascinating email with a video. So it's like we talked about biology on an episode, 6, 7, 8 episodes ago. Edsel went down the biology rabbit hole like I did with his dad, which I thought was really something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And like yesterday, just in my inbox pops in this email with like, hey, I think biology would dig this. And it was a video from a guy, a Vice reporter. He was like, I don't like Vice, Edsel said. And I was like, me neither, but let's check it out.
Yeah.
And it was an interview. So biology's on a huge kick with pseudonymity at the moment. He believes that pseudonymous everything is the future. And I'm skeptical, but
That makes me nervous.
This, we there are a whole bunch of questions between Edsel and I came out at the end of it, but this video was a Vice reporter who had been very successful with he had gotten this. He basically made a fake restaurant in London and turned it into the hottest property, but no one had eaten there. It got reviews. It had month-long reservations. He did this art project, right?
I've heard of this.
Except what he did next was on the pseudonymity kick. He started, because he got all this press, he started sending out fake versions of himself. He sent out his brother. He sent out people that he interviewed. He had total randomers represent him on Skypes. He won a big prestigious award for media and sent some other dude. God. And the dude picked up the thing and he just totally played with the format. And it was fascinating.
Yeah.
And the questions Edsel and I were asking is like, well, this pseudonymity thing, will it actually raise the value of authenticity, which is something we're all kind of obsessed with, I think, authentic communication, or will it make it impossible? Will it be pointless? Will it be dangerous to be yourself on the internet? So anyway, so many questions.
Privacy, all this stuff.
The point is not to start a second episode. It is to say that these, I have this image of a black silhouette of one of our listeners and the top of their head opening Monty Python style and like great shit coming out.
Yeah, hell
and this was great shit coming back from Edsel to me.
Yeah, man.
So, we find things, put them into the world, and then they come back with exciting things that get more juices flowing.
Yes.
And the AMA really brings that to a point or to a boil. So I'm with you, John. I'm grateful and excited and to do more of them.
Yeah.
And
an increased sense of community is good.
Yeah, more voices, more people, more ideas, more diversity of opinion and experience.
Yes.
Just getting, Portuguese people in London and people in Canada already, it's incredible. That we go from a dining room table in downtown LA to just there is incredible. And Mexico City and Stockholm, and it's wild.
It makes me wonder what else we can build.
Yeah. Well, let's get about it. Dudes.
Till next time.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who submitted for taking the time. All right.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrigg brothers.